A stormy night in a tiny mountain village. A pregnant mother fighting for her life inside a candle-lit chapel. And a loyal German shepherd refusing to leave her side. She thought she was alone. Until faith, fate, and a hidden family secret brought her exactly where God needed her to be. How did a journey of heartbreak turn into the miracle that saved 2 lives? Before we begin, tell me where you're watching from, and if you believe God sends angels in many forms, even 4-legged ones, hit subscribe and stay with us for this incredible story. Spring sunlight melted the last ribbons of snow along the creek that curled beside Maple Hollow. A quiet village nestled far from city roads and faster heartbeats. Lauren Brooks pressed her palms against her 7-month belly as she stepped out of her dusty gray pickup truck. She was 32, with long chestnut hair tied into a messy ponytail, fair skin freckled from childhood summers she wished she remembered more clearly, and green eyes ringed with exhaustion. She had the build of someone who once jogged lakeside before dawn, before life tilted. Now her frame felt heavier, not only because of the baby inside her, but because of the weight of an unexpected future. Her voice cracked slightly as she whispered, "We're okay. We're still standing." She wrapped her coat, an old denim jacket that had frayed elbows, more tightly around herself, though the spring air was gentle. Next to her hopped down Rex, her German shepherd. 4 years old, thick, black and tan fur, strong chest, alert, amber eyes that rarely blinked when he sensed danger. He had once been trained as a service dog, but an early injury left a faint scar on his right flank and a lingering suspicion toward strangers. Loyal to a fault, his protective instinct toward Lauren had intensified ever since she'd cried alone on the interstate before choosing this new beginning. He nudged her hand as if to say, "We made it." She gazed at the cabin. No, a repurposed woodworking shop, leaning slightly like an old man refusing to bow. Its exterior weathered by decades of storms and solitude. A faded sign still clung above the door. Whitaker Woodworks. The windows had streaks of dried rain and suspicion. The porch creaked beneath her cautious steps, complaining like an elder disturbed from a nap. The roof sagged. Gutters clung desperately to loose nails, and the scent of sawdust lingered as though the previous carpenter had stepped out only minutes ago instead of many years. Lauren paused before entering. She closed her eyes, remembering Ethan, the man with polished shoes and neatly ironed future plans. He was 34, a corporate attorney with a sharp jaw and sharper convictions. When she told him she was pregnant, his response had been precise, sterile. This isn't part of the 5-year plan. He packed without yelling, without chaos, just absence. Watching him go felt like watching a surgeon remove something essential without anesthesia. She had been abandoned, not in anger, but indifference, and that somehow hurt more. Inside the workshop, dust motes drifted through sunlight coming from a cracked skylight. Tools rusted in place like soldiers frozen mid-march. Shelves leaned, heavy with jars containing forgotten screws and curled shavings of cherry wood and walnut. On one wall hung faded family photographs behind glass clouded by time. One showed a woman with silver hair braided neatly and stern yet kind gray eyes. The woman's hands rested confidently on a crib she must have carved herself. Was she the owner? Eleanor? Lauren wondered. Something in the woman's proud posture tugged at her chest. Her boots crunched against the scattered wood chips. She dragged her suitcase, a cheap carry-on with a broken wheel that screeched in protest, across the floor. She chose the corner near the wood stove for her sleeping bag, imagining nights warmed by crackling fire and dreams kinder than reality. You and me, little one, she murmured, rubbing circles across the gentle slope of her belly. The baby answered with a flutter, as if reminding her that even heartache couldn't extinguish hope. Yet the silence was loud. Too loud. Rex growled low in his throat, tail stiff, ears aimed toward the far dark corner where shadows pooled thick. His muscles tensed, ready. Lauren followed his gaze cautiously. She took a step, and a faint thud, thud, thud echoed from beneath the wooden floorboards. Her breath caught. At first she assumed it must be pipes, or the natural settling of old planks. But the sound came again, deliberate, rhythmic. 3 knocks. Not 2. Not 4. Always 3. Like a secret code. She steadied herself, pushing air into her lungs. Maybe it was a raccoon or an opossum nesting below. Woodland creatures made strange noises. She tried to convince herself, but Rex's lips curled away from his teeth. He had smelled fear before, and whatever lurked below carried its scent. Lauren kneeled carefully, pressing her palm flat against the cool wooden boards. For a moment, nothing. Then, knock, knock, knock. Clear. Intentional. She flinched backward, heart pounding like a door hastily locked. The workshop suddenly felt smaller, like its walls leaned closer to listen. The photographs seemed to watch her reaction, especially the woman's calm, unwavering stare, as if she expected this, as if she had heard those knocks once, long ago. Lauren forced a shaky laugh, trying to disguise the rising panic. Probably. Just the house saying hello, she whispered, though even she didn't believe it. The truth pressed against her trembling breath. Someone, or something, was beneath her. Rex stood in front of her, head low, body shielding hers. Lauren swept the flashlight from her phone across the floor, searching for any crack or hatch. Anything that revealed where the noise came from. The light hovered over a wide floorboard that seemed slightly raised, its edges worn more than the others. The knocking came again. Knock, knock, knock. Closer this time, as if whatever was under there knew it had caught their attention. Her voice was a fragile thread. Rex, I think someone's down there. The dog's growl deepened. Spring breezes outside carried the scent of blooming flowers and new beginnings. But inside this forgotten workshop, something old and unseen waited in the dark below, patient and persistent. Lauren swallowed hard, one hand shielding her belly, the other gripping her phone like a weapon for Soreka, too weak. What if she wasn't alone in her new beginning after all? The floorboard beneath her palm vibrated. One more knock, and Lauren froze. Morning sunlight crept cautiously into the workshop, as if unsure whether this forgotten place welcomed warmth anymore. Lauren Brooks, still shaken from the night's strange knocking beneath the floorboards, forced herself to breathe slowly as she made tea on a sputtering old hot plate she found in a drawer. 7 months pregnant, her belly formed a perfect round hill beneath her oversized sweatshirt, and each small movement reminded her that while fear lurked, so did life. Rex remained alert, patrolling the workshop with pointed ears and stiff steps. His tail wasn't wagging this morning. Whatever had knocked last night left him unsettled. The German shepherd circled back to Lauren, brushing her thigh with his warm fur, his amber eyes silently urging her to stay cautious. Lauren sipped the weak tea. It was nothing, she whispered aloud, more for herself than for the dog. It's an old house. Old houses make noises. But the doubt in her voice was obvious. She resolved to focus on something she could control. Cleaning. The workshop felt overwhelming with its clutter of wooden sculptures, rusted tools, and boxes filled with the leftover life of someone she never knew. She began dragging crates aside, coughing as dust puffed up around her. When she accidentally shoved her weight against the wrong floorboard, it lifted slightly and clacked back down, hollow beneath. Her pulse spiked. She crouched, the board giving just enough to wiggle loose. Beneath it, tucked into a shallow compartment, sat a wooden box the size of a shoebox. She pulled it out carefully, heart hammering against her ribs. Its surface was carved with flowing vines that framed 3 small indentations, shapes she immediately recognized: a maple leaf, a swallow, and a small flower. She lifted the lid, releasing a breath of air that smelled faintly of lavender and old paper. Inside lay 3 keys, each antique brass, each engraved to match the shapes: the leaf, the swallow, the flower. Lauren traced the maple leaf key with her thumb, feeling the delicate grooves. Rex nosed the edge of the box and whined low in his throat. "I know," she murmured. "I feel it too." A sudden knock at the door made both of them jump. Rex darted forward, but instead of growling, he wagged once, cautiously. Lauren peeked through the dusty window. An older man stood there, hunched slightly, but sturdy, holding a canvas sack. His face was framed by gray stubble, his skin sun-worn and creased from years of outdoor work. His clothing, plaid shirt tucked into faded overalls, suggested a man whose hands still remembered the weight of soil. She cracked the door open. "Hello?" "Morning, ma'am," he greeted, his voice raspy with age, yet warm. "Name's Walter Harris. I live just down the road. Brings a person some curiosity, seeing smoke from this place again." He scratched the back of his neck, casting a fond look over the property. "Used to help Eleanor with some chores around here. She didn't like asking for help, but arthritis has a way of making requests for you." Lauren recalled the name from the framed photos. "Eleanor Whitaker?" Walter nodded, eyes softening. A healer, midwife, the kind of woman who could turn fear into faith just by standing beside you. His words landed in Lauren like seeds eager for soil. She hesitated, then stepped aside. "Would you like to come in?" Walter entered with slow reverence, removing his hat as if stepping into a church. He looked around the workshop, nostalgia flickering in his eyes. She kept everything neat once. After she passed, lawyers had to clear the estate. Some things stayed behind, like the memories. Lauren hugged her arms around herself. "I found some keys and her name. I don't really know what any of this means." Walter's eyebrows rose as she showed him the carved box. He inhaled sharply. "Haven't seen those in years." Eleanor said these keys were for the right hands when the time came. Before Lauren could ask what that meant, a gust of air swept through the hall. The lone candle she had lit, more for comfort than light, flickered violently and went out. The warmth vanished, replaced by a cold draft that made her skin prickle. Walter rubbed his arms. Strange. Not usually a breeze in here. Rex barked once, sharp and defensive, facing the inner workshop wall, where a row of old medical jars stood neatly labeled in Eleanor's elegant handwriting. Then came a sound again. Click, click, click. The unmistakable metallic struggle of a lock turning. It was coming from a drawer built into an antique pine cabinet, the handle rusted, the keyhole dark like a hungry mouth. Walter's voice dropped. That cabinet's been shut tight for as long as I've known this place. Lauren felt electricity prickle her spine. Maybe. She lifted the box of keys, hands trembling. Rex barked louder, desperate to warn or protect. It was unclear. Walter swallowed. If you're going to open it, be ready. Eleanor always said some things are locked away because they're meant to be found. Not before. Lauren approached the cabinet, her heart thudding in that same rhythm she heard beneath the floor last night. She lifted one of the keys, the swallow, its brass handle warm, almost pulsing. It slid into the keyhole with eerie ease. She turned it. The lock released with a soft hiss, like a secret exhaling after years of silence. The drawer inched open, and Lauren froze. Inside, wrapped in yellowed cloth, was something shaped like a journal, and beneath it, a glint of cold metal. The candle suddenly reignited behind them, though no match had been struck. And in the eerie stillness, one thought filled Lauren's mind. Someone wanted her to find this. The journal in the drawer weighed more than paper should, as if every page carried a heartbeat from the past. Lauren Brooks placed it gently beside the wooden box of keys and inhaled deeply, trying to steady her nerves. Her back ached from a combination of pregnancy and tension, and her ankles throbbed from too many hours on her feet. Still, she forced herself to keep moving. Stillness left too much space for fear. Earlier that morning, she had noticed the patch of land behind the workshop that sloped toward the creek. Beneath the blanket of overgrowth, faint hints of structure lingered. Raised beds, half-buried stones, wooden frames swallowed by vines. Eleanor's handwriting, tidy and expressive, labeled herbs on the jars in the hidden room. Chamomile, echinacea, red raspberry leaf, all plants that could have grown here once. She rolled up her sleeves. "A garden doesn't rebuild itself," she muttered. Rex bounded excitedly into the tall grass, his tail sweeping arcs of enthusiasm. The German shepherd, despite his scars and suspicion of strangers, loved open spaces and the promise of discovery. He sniffed vigorously around the beds as Lauren crouched and pried away stubborn weeds. The earth smelled rich, eager to be useful again. For the first time since arriving, she felt something soft inside her unclench. She almost smiled. The peaceful moment didn't last. Her phone buzzed inside her pocket. Voicemail notification. Mom. Lauren closed her eyes. Her mother, Karen Brooks, was a slender woman in her late 50s who wore crisp blazers and unmet expectations. Her hair, once soft brown like Lauren's, was now bleached blonde to chase youth, and she clung to order the way a drowning person clings to air. Karen had always believed life followed a script. College, marriage, children. Only when the conditions were perfect. Perfection had been her prison. When Lauren announced her pregnancy, Karen's response was a cold surgical strike. "You ruined the plan." Lauren ignored the voicemail. She couldn't handle another guilt-laden lecture reminding her that love wasn't supposed to feel like abandonment. So she chose the soil instead. Around late afternoon, Lauren spotted movement on the path leading up from the road. A woman was approaching, slender, maybe mid-20s, curly auburn hair that caught the light like copper wire, freckles scattered across her nose. She wore a navy cardigan and jeans and held a canvas tote. When she reached the fence, she waved with a cheerful but cautious smile. "Hi, you must be the new neighbor. I'm Amelia Davis. I run the little library in town." Amelia's voice carried an eager warmth, like someone who loved stories and saw potential in every stranger. Lauren brushed dirt from her knees. "I'm Lauren. This is Rex." The dog sniffed Amelia's hand, approving her enough to sit, though his gaze flicked protectively back to Lauren every few seconds. Amelia pulled a book from her tote. "We've all been so curious. No one's lived here since Eleanor passed. I thought maybe you'd like this." The book was titled Herbal Remedies of New England. Inside the cover, a handwritten note. "May your roots take hold here, Iris." "Iris?" Lauren asked. "Iris Blackwood," Amelia explained. "She owns the candle shop next to the old mill. She and Eleanor were close." Amelia hesitated, eyes flicking toward the workshop. "Eleanor helped a lot of women. Some say she saved this town more times than the doctor ever did." There was reverence in her tone, and a hint of grief. Amelia wouldn't say more, so after a short chat, she left with a promise that the library was always open to new beginnings. As dusk approached, Lauren rested inside the workshop, rubbing her sore belly. She felt a flutter, stronger this time. "Easy, little one," she whispered. "We're figuring it out." Hunger nudged her. She moved to the cabinet again, drawn to the newly opened drawer and the old journal wrapped carefully in cloth. She unfolded the fabric, revealing a faded leather cover and a sealed envelope tucked underneath. Her name wasn't on it, only a gentle inscription. "For the mother who finds this home." Hands trembling, she opened it. Inside was a letter, written in the same elegant script found throughout Eleanor's notes. "To the next mother who seeks shelter here, do not run from what made you. Do not bury what breathes beneath your floorboards. What you fear in the dark may be what saves you in the light." The final lines hit her hardest. "The past will come looking. Be ready to meet its eyes." Lauren swallowed hard. Her heartbeat punched at her ribs. Rex's ears shot upward before she even heard it. A howl, distant but sharp, slicing through the quiet village night like a warning. Lauren rushed outside. The breeze had shifted, spring's warmth replaced by a sudden chill. On the other side of the creek, where the water rushed fast from melted snow, a tall woman in a flowing white dress stood completely still. Her dark hair hung long past her shoulders, impossibly black against the pale dress. She faced Lauren directly, though shadows hid her expression. There was something about her presence, unnatural stillness, edges slightly blurred, like a figure pulled loose from time. Rex erupted into furious barking, positioning himself between Lauren and the creek. Lauren's breath turned to ice. Her hand clutched her belly, as if shielding the tiny heartbeat within. The woman didn't move, didn't blink, but Lauren felt her gaze. And then, so sudden Lauren nearly screamed. The woman raised her arm and pointed at Lauren. The wind ripped leaves from the birches along the bank of Maple Creek, hurling them across the swollen waters like frantic birds. The spring thaw had turned the gentle stream into a raging serpent, spitting foam and hunger. Rain hammered the roof of the workshop, and Lauren Brooks clutched her side as a contraction carved lightning across her abdomen. 36 weeks was too soon. Her breath came shallow, her heart frantic. Rex nudged her leg urgently, barking toward the door, tail stiff as a warning flag. "Okay," she gasped, grabbing her labor bag and slipping a jacket over her shoulders. She barely managed to lock the door before another spasm bent her knees. Rex pressed against her for balance, his warm body grounding her as the cold storm threatened to knock her off her feet. They staggered toward the wooden bridge that connected the workshop land to the rest of Maple Hollow. The planks quivered violently under the assault of floodwaters. The supports groaned like bones about to snap. Lauren hesitated, fear slicing her breath. Rex bounded ahead, looking back with a sharp bark that said, "Move." She stepped onto the bridge just as a plank fractured beneath her boot. Her foot plunged through. She screamed, grabbing the rope railing. The force of the fall jolted her belly. Pain lanced downward. Rex whirled, lunged, and clamped his teeth into her coat sleeve, yanking her upward with a deep growl that said he'd drag her across the entire creek if he had to. Together, one staggering, one pulling, they crossed, collapsing onto solid ground soaked with rain. Another contraction hit, longer, harsher. She gripped the roots of an oak tree, panting through clenched teeth. "Not now," she pleaded to the sky. "Please. Not yet." With Rex beside her, they trudged through the storm toward the white steeple of St. Mary's Chapel, its stained windows flickering with lantern light. Voices murmured inside. Safety, shelter, hands. She pushed the door open, and warmth, soft light, and the scent of beeswax washed over her. Inside stood Dr. Megan Lee, a Korean-American woman in her early 40s, with short black hair pinned back in practical clips. She wore waterproof scrubs beneath a rain jacket, her expression calm and deeply focused. Years of rural medicine had etched faint lines around her eyes, not from age, but from vigilance. She rushed to Lauren's side, her voice firm but gentle. "Deep breaths. You're early, but we can manage." Beside her was a tall man with sandy hair, Daniel Harper, the town's volunteer firefighter. His square jaw and stubble hinted at sleepless nights. He had once lost his wife during childbirth, a tragedy that shadowed his kindness with protective urgency. He offered blankets without speaking, but the grief behind his eyes said more than words could. Lauren let them guide her to a cot where she lay trembling, clutching her belly. The contractions slowed, then steadied. Danger not gone, but held at bay. Dr. Lee checked her vitals, nodding as Rex stayed glued to her side, a sentinel with fur. "You're strong. The baby is holding on," the doctor said. Lauren tried to breathe relief, but her heart still raced from another shock. The paper she had discovered only minutes earlier. It still lay crumpled in her pocket. With shaking fingers, she handed it to Dr. Lee. Birth certificate. Mother, Eleanor Whitaker. Child, Lauren Whitaker. Her voice cracked, barely above a whisper. "This says I'm her daughter." Dr. Lee blinked, stunned. "Are you sure it's not a coincidence?" Lauren rasped, tears streaking her cheeks. "My mother always told me I was adopted. She refused to tell me anything about my birth. She said it was a mistake of youth. She never said who. The room fell silent, except for the storm's thunderous pounding. Daniel Harper stepped closer, voice low and respectful. Eleanor, she lost a baby. Everyone knew. She never recovered. Dr. Lee shook her head slowly. But this changes that story. Lauren pressed her hands against her swollen belly, trying to anchor herself. Her pulse roared in her ears. If Eleanor was my mother, why did she give me away? And why did she plan for me to come back here? The candle flames flickered violently along the chapel walls, shadows stretching long and skeletal. Thunder cracked like the sky splitting open. The chapel door slammed itself shut. The lanterns flickered, then dimmed. Rex snarled at the door, spine arched, hackles lifting. A shape moved past the stained glass windows, white fabric whipping like wings in the gale. The woman in white. Dr. Lee hurried to the window, but saw only the flood outside. This storm is turning dangerous. Roads will be cut off. Another contraction slammed into Lauren's body, and she cried out, gripping Daniel's hand. He steadied her without flinching, though his jaw clenched with memory. Dr. Lee checked her again, face tightening. It's starting too soon. If we can't slow the labor, the thunder swallowed the rest. Lauren felt the world narrowing to pain and fear. She squeezed shut her teary eyes. A hand, warm, impossibly familiar, closed over hers. She opened her eyes. No one was standing there, but the touch remained. And on the wall beside her, the portrait of Eleanor Whitaker, the same woman from the photo in the workshop, shook as if knocked from behind, tilting to reveal an inscription etched faintly beneath the frame's shadow. Daniel lifted the portrait, revealing a hand-carved message in the wood. Blood returns when the circle calls. Lauren gasped. The baby kicked hard, responding to something ancient in those words. A violent gust of wind hit the chapel, rattling windows in warning. Lauren wasn't only giving birth too early. She was giving birth into a secret she was never meant to ignore. And the storm outside? It wasn't the only thing coming for her tonight. Wind still battered the chapel's stained glass windows, as if the storm refused to surrender its final roar. But inside, the candle flames remained impossibly still. Halos of warm, golden light forming a fragile sanctuary around Lauren Brooks. She clung to the edges of Eleanor's birthing chair, its curved oak arms worn smooth by decades of other mothers' desperation and hope. Her hair clung wet against her cheeks. Pain carved valleys into her breathing, and her 7-month belly tightened again in a relentless wave. Rex stood at her feet, growling softly with each thunderclap, as though warning the storm. "She's ours. Leave her be." Dr. Megan Lee moved with calm precision, tucking her short black hair behind one ear, her steady hands checking Lauren's progress. Despite the exhaustion softening her posture, she carried the aura of someone who had survived too many emergencies to fear one more. "Lauren, you're doing beautifully. Just breathe through this, long and slow." Her tone remained both medical and maternal, as if she had sworn an oath to protect not only lives, but courage. Nearby, Daniel Harper adjusted the lantern wicks to brighten the room, his broad shoulders blocking the draft creeping through the chapel's old woodwork. His sandy brown stubble glistened with rain, and every movement he made betrayed a protective instinct he couldn't shake, the remnant of a husband who once held hope in a hospital room until hope slipped through his fingers. He stayed close, offering warmth, blankets, and silent strength without demanding anything in return. The chapel door suddenly burst open. A gust of icy rain sprayed across the floor, candles flickered, and Rex leaped forward in a defensive stance. A tall figure stepped inside, white fabric swirling around her like specters' wings. But as she pulled down her hood, the ghostly illusion dissolved. It was Iris Blackwood, late 50s, thin as a wisp of willow, silver-gray hair pinned beneath a damp shawl. Her skin was pale from working long hours indoors, mixing wax and oils, and her gray-green eyes glimmered with the strange mix of empathy and secrets only a lifelong keeper of rituals could know. She held a heavy woven basket against her chest, breathing hard. "I came as fast as the storm would allow," she rasped. "You shouldn't do this alone." Lauren's panic cracked into a sob. "I think the baby's coming too soon." Iris knelt beside her, placing the basket down. Inside were steaming towels, a jar of thick herbal salve, braided cords. "Not too soon," she murmured, almost as though speaking to both mother and storm. "Right on time for the circle." Lauren barely processed the words as another contraction hit, wrenching a sharp cry from her throat. Dr. Lee braced her shoulders, coaching her breath, her calm voice a guiding rope across the chasm of pain. Daniel glanced toward the windows. The storm had begun to quiet, raindrops softening into taps rather than fists. Rex nudged Lauren's knee, eyes filled not with fear now, but fierce encouragement. The candlelight dimmed briefly, then surged brighter than before. The air warmed. A presence, unseen, pressed close. Lauren felt familiar fingers brush her shoulder. impossible, but undeniable. Eleanor Whitaker's portrait rattled gently on the chapel wall, as if acknowledging the moment she had once waited for. Lauren cried out, pushing with everything she had left. The world narrowed to heartbeat and breath, and the primal thunder rolling through her bones. One final surge, and then a new cry, thin but strong, pierced the air. Dr. Lee lifted the baby, her voice breaking into a smile. A girl. She's here, Lauren. She's here, and perfect. Lauren collapsed back, sobs of shock and love shaking her whole body. Iris wrapped the infant, tiny, pink-skinned, tufts of dark hair already curling, in a soft, hand-woven blanket. Daniel stepped away, discreetly wiping tears he would never admit to. Lauren held the baby against her chest, inhaling that indescribable newborn scent, a promise carved from chaos. "Nora?" she whispered. "Nora Grace Brooks." Grace, the gift she never expected life to give again. The storm outside stopped completely. Silence swelled around them like a blessing. Later, after Nora was inspected and swaddled safe, Iris guided Lauren's eyes to the birth certificate she had discovered earlier. Its back, once smudged with time, now showed a clearer engraving, the ink almost glowing. "If you have found your way here, you have come home." Lauren's breath shuddered. Eleanor had known. Somehow, she had known Lauren would return. Had she sent those knocks beneath the floor? Guided Rex's vigilance? Whispered warnings through wind? Daniel stepped toward the door, ready to call for help now that the storm had passed. But he paused. On the chapel table behind them, the wooden key box Lauren brought earlier trembled, softly at first, then enough that the single remaining key fell out, clinking against the table. The swallow key had opened the cabinet. The flower key had opened the drawer. The maple leaf key still waited. Lauren looked at Nora in her arms, then at the last key glinting like a captured star. She didn't know what it opened. But the circle had only just begun to turn. In the quiet corners of life, in a storm-lit chapel, in the arms of a newborn child, in the loyal watch of a faithful dog, miracles still unfold every single day. Lauren believed she was alone, but God was already writing a braver chapter for her. He guided her footsteps, placed the right people beside her, and turned her deepest fear into the moment she met her greatest blessing. Sometimes, broken roads lead us exactly where we are meant to be. So, if you're watching this tonight, if your days feel heavy, if you're praying for a sign, remember this: God never sends us into storms to drown, but to discover who walks on water beside us. Faith isn't about seeing the path. It's trusting the one who lights it. And just like Lauren, may you also find that what you thought was the end was only the beginning of your miracle. May God bless you, keep you safe, and fill your heart with hope wherever you are watching from. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment and let us know what part inspired you. Give this video a like to share the message of faith and love. Subscribe to join our family, where every story reminds us that God is still working miracles today. Tonight, take a moment to pray for mothers and children everywhere, for safety, for healing, and for a future full of grace. Because here, in this community, we believe that no one faces life alone.